Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Live Boldly with Sarah. Today is a very special episode because I'm going to give you some behind the scenes of what it's been like for me over the last 12 years. Actually, I started my business about 9 years ago. But I want to go all the way back to the 12 years. What was the foundation, the precipice of me starting my business? And then how did I keep going through in the times when I doubted myself? Because we all do it. It's a natural state, right? And I think that on the edge of doubt, there's this belief. And so I want to dive into the behind the scenes of this. Why? Because I have a new brand that is just launching this week. If you go into my website, sarahschultingcrayons.com, you're going to see it's going to look 1,000 times different than it ever has. And I was on the precipice myself of self-doubt many, many times during this last 11 months. It's been 11 months since I started this rebrand. And I want to dive into that. I want to dive into what's the red thread, as I like to call this, through all of it. Like what's been the thing that's kept me going? How have I looked back and gone, oh, that makes sense now, why I was in that situation to get me to this place right now. So grab your journals because I want this to be I want it to be exciting. I want it to be, I want it to create your next step wherever you're at right now. Okay. So let's go dive all the way back. 12 years ago, it was almost 12 years ago that I went through my big life change. If you read my book, Walk Through This, Harness the Healing Power of Nature and Travel the Road to Forgiveness, you will read the whole backstory of it. I knew when my life imploded, when my marriage, my everything, the foundation of where I was at, when it imploded, that meant that something else was going to come from that now lost foundation, right? I equate it to being in a huge earthquake and feeling like everything around you has just literally fallen into shreds, like you have nothing left. And when you're in that earthquake state, or what I like to also equate it to as a lifequake, which we all go through, we usually go through them anywhere between 12 to 18 months. When I was in that, I remember thinking to myself, what is going to grow from this horrific experience that I'm in right now? Now, at that time, 12 years ago, when this happened, I remember going back to those times in my life where I felt like I was going to do more with my life, but I couldn't figure out what it was. I remember sitting there thinking to myself, okay, maybe that's what, when I was driving down the road at 17, 18, and had this thought of like, you're going to write a book someday. Maybe this is what this is about. When I sat on the bed with my best friend, Stephanie, in Colorado, of all places, where I gave my very first speaking engagement, by the way, when I was sitting on the bed with her and I was telling her, it was years ago, it was before my big life quake. I remember asking her, like, do you ever have this feeling that you're going to do more, but you can't figure out what it is? Like you don't know what your purpose is. You know what your passion is, but you can't put all of it together to create whatever it is that you're supposed to be doing. And we were sitting on the bed in the hotel room and she said, Sarah, start with the first step. Start with the blog. Start with writing out what it is that you want. Start with writing down your story and where you're at right now. Because back then, I believe this was in 2011, actually, July of 2011. I remember thinking to myself, like, I want to create more for the world, and I don't even know what that is. I know I have so much more to give. I know that my story will touch other people's lives. I just don't even know how to create that or to do it. So I was really stuck in the how, right? What and the how. I knew the why. I knew the why was I want to create impact. I just didn't know the what I was going to do or the how I was going to do it. And I tell Stephanie this all the time. I'm like, Steph, that conversation was so imperative and I listened and it stuck with me and it is a piece to my own red thread in life. Now, fast forward, I went through this huge devastation in 2012, right? And that's when I was like, okay, maybe this is what this is all about. Maybe I couldn't create whatever it was that I wanted to create in this world because my story wasn't actually complete in order to create what it was that needed to be done for the world, right? And so I went through that whole thing of like trying to make sense of it. And then in therapy, thank you, my dear therapist, former therapist, Dorrit, who's now my dear friend and colleague. I remember sitting her in her room and one day when I was going through all of this, through the trauma, the PTSD, working through it, trying to make sense of this horrific demise of my marriage and life. And I was sitting on her couch and she said to me, you have so much to give in this world. You need to create something that will help others in the way that you are helping yourself. Now, I want you to listen to that. In other words, I needed to create something that was going to help others, that was also helping that current person, myself at that time. And so I was asking her, I was like, well, what does that mean? Like, what are you talking about? And she said, Sara, you're healing and growing at a much faster rate than other people that I work with. What is it that you're doing differently than others? And at the time I was paddling, I was climbing mountains, I was out in nature. And I said, well, I'm going out on my paddleboard, I'm healing myself in nature. And she said, that's the missing link. That's the piece that needs to get put out into the world. And you are really good at creating whatever it is, right? Like you're really good at creating your own healing, at your own growth. You're doing things for yourself that I can't help you do. So whatever it is that you're doing, that's what needs to get taught. So I was sitting on my paddleboard one day with a dear friend, and he asked me, what it is that you want to do? And I said, well, I would love to take people into nature. I would love to show them what it is that, because I was in this, like, I still don't know the what or the how, right? I was being given these little snippets of information, but I didn't know. And so when I was sitting on the paddleboard and he asked me that question, what is it that you would, if you could do anything in the world and you didn't have to know the how, what is it that you would want to do? And I said, well, I would like to take people into nature and to help them to find themselves, to this purpose, this passion, to heal, to grow, to become that version of themselves that they were intended. And he goes, well, then why aren't you doing it? And I said, because I don't know how. And he said, neither does anyone else when they're first starting out. So take the first step and find out one missing link to get it done and go do it because it needs to get done. So that's what I did. I remember thinking, okay, well, like if I could take them anywhere, where would I take people? And I thought the Grand Canyon, because that's my home space. I have so much connectivity when I am there. And I was like, that's where I would like to take people. So I found out, how do people take people into the Grand Canyon? And I called the Grand Canyon. I literally called the Grand Canyon. And I said, hey, I don't really know any of this, like how to get there or what to do to take people down in. So to guide them through the Grand Canyon, what do I do? She goes, oh, well, you have to get your commercial use authorization. And in order to do that, you have to get your wilderness first responder certification. And here's what you do. And so I just asked the questions. And then I started taking notes. And then I went and got my wilderness first responder certification, found out how to do that. And then I went and got my commercial use authorization, found out how to do that. I remember starting my company, Live Boldly Coaching LLC. I didn't know how to do that. I just Googled it because we have the power of Google at our fingertips. And I was like, okay, that sounds cool. Now, how did I come up with my name? I came up with my name on my business because I was running one day and I had purchased a bracelet from Target that said, love life, live boldly. And I wore that bracelet all of the time during my trauma healing because I wanted to love my life and I wanted to live it boldly. So that's how my actual tagline came up, Live Boldly Coaching, because I wanted people to live boldly and to step into their best version of self, like I was teaching myself how to do the same. So that's the background of how this company started. Now, here's the thing. A lot of people doubted me. There were a lot of people that thought, people that were actually very, very close to me, like Like if you're going to put, step one person, right, the person's closest to you, those people closest to me doubted me and they thought what I was doing was a hobby. A hobby. Like taking people down into the Grand Canyon is not a freaking hobby, people. And they thought it was a hobby. And I had to work through a lot of the doubt that was being placed on me so that it didn't become my self doubt. Right. And that happens a lot. People will doubt you. People will sit there and ask you, why are you doing this? When are you going to get done with it? I thought this was just a phase in your life. And those things that are closest to our heart, those things that are a part of our own vision, they are not just a phase. They are a part of you for a reason. They become a part of your red thread, right? And when you know, like you know, like you know, because you are diving into that space, into what is most important to you, don't let other people become the mirror of your own imposter syndrome, right? And don't allow them to take up space in your head. Just don't. Don't let them take up space in your heart because ultimately you're not living for them. You're living for yourself, right? You are here for you to carry out that gift, that best version of yourself, to become that person who you are. And I'm going to tell you something. The greatest gift of all of this has been happiness and joy in my own life. Because when you give into others, you are also giving into yourself. It comes full circle. So when you are stepping into that space of your purpose, of your passion, of your vision, of why you are here, it only feeds your own soul. And there is nothing greater than that. Right. And so if I could give you that one piece of advice, those people who doubt you, laugh at the doubt and just remember that it comes from within, that belief in yourself, that belief in you doing what it is that you were intended. Those people that have hurt me in my life, I do not give credit to the hurt. I give credit to my own growth on the other side of that hurt and on the other side of that pain, because people will continue to hurt you. People will, it just happened to me recently. I won't go into that. However, there was a situation where I was once again violated. My space was violated. And on the other side of that, I have to remind myself, why are you here? And those people who violate you, all that they're doing is reminding you one more time, what the foundation of who you are, the values of who you are, and why you do what you do, right? So fast forward, I started leading these incredible retreats. The first one that I did, I didn't have a freaking clue like what it was going to turn out like. What I did was I literally reached out to as many people as I knew and said, hey, this is what I'm doing. I am creating this course. I am taking people down into the Grand Canyon. And if you want to be the first person in this launch of this new business that I'm doing, I welcome you. And I ended up having this incredible group of humans. We ended up doing what started out as a 3-month course, believe it or not. And we were only down there for one night, actually. It was a one night down at the bottom of the Grand Canyon. And what I realized in that experience was that the course needed to become smaller and down at the bottom needed to be longer. And so that's why it went to a 1.5, actually it was a 2-month, went down to 1.5 month, and now it's a 1-month course. And it is a deep dive, like serious, really touching on the things that are most important and pulling out the things that are not. And having the 1-month course along with the 2 nights at the bottom of the Grand Canyon. And I'll tell you, the thing about business and about working and about life is that you are continuously problem solving through the pieces to create something better and to create something even more high impact. That's the other thing. It's very metaphorical of your life because we only have so much time on this earth. And I want it to be as high impact for myself as well as for those people that I am touching. Right. And so it's been this evolution, which is what living is. It's an evolution. And it's been super fun. Let's not forget, like, it's super fun to dive in and to create and recreate and to, become that person. I mean, look at all the people that have done it. Taylor Swift, Jelly Roll, which, by the way, I love his music. And so, I think about all these people that have recreated themselves throughout their life. I mean, Jelly Roll was in prison and now he is this incredible singer who, by the way, I just watched. He brought other people from jail onto the stage and gave them the opportunity to, to share their gift of music with everyone and to experience what it is to be on the other side. Because when you experience what it is to be on the other side, you want to be on the other side of everything. And so, like, these are the people that are creating impact as well and recreating and, creating new visions in their life over and over and over again. And I am too. So let's dive into what's next. Well, about 2 years ago, for those that were not along on this journey of recreation, it was actually 3 years ago, I met somebody and I was in this relationship that I very quickly ended up getting out of. That's a whole nother story. And he was a speaker. And I remember, I'm just going to be real here. I remember standing there in the back watching him speak. And I don't even know how else to say it. He is not who he says that he is. And so I'm just going to call it like I see it because, that's what I do. My integrity is always where it is. And he was saying things that he was also not walking in within his own life. And I remember that was at the very end of the relationship. And I remember standing in the back of the room watching this and I was like, wait a second here. He's delivering a message he's not walking in. And I walk in my message every single day. Well, obviously that relationship ended. Literally, that was the end. And I had this realization of if other people are doing what ultimately I love, love, love doing, and I'm so good at it, I'm going to call it I just am. I love what I do. And teaching is like a part of me. I went to school to be an art teacher. I went to college to be an art teacher. When I was a little girl, I used to set up the desk in my parents' basement, those old ones with like the top, right, that come up and down. And I used to pretend like I was the teacher in the front of the room and I put my doll in the seat. And that was my thing. I've always been a teacher. And so I was thinking to myself when I was watching this unfold going, you're teaching and spreading a message that you're not even walking in. What will the impact be like for me and for those people in the audience when I'm actually sharing the message, teaching the message, and I live the message, right? And so there's an energetic thing there that happens. And I'm like, okay, enough is enough, Sarah. You got to stop playing as small as you even are right now. I mean, I wasn't playing small. I was very successful. I was very successful in leading my retreats and doing all the work, and I still am. And yet, when I say small, I mean small in terms of how big that this can actually become. Whatever it is, the vision, the messaging, all of it, the impact, right? Because when I'm leading retreats, I'm literally hitting on 10 people. Well, 8 clients and then myself and my co-lead. And when I'm standing on stage, I'm impacting hundreds to thousands. So like when I did my TED Talk, there were like 1,200 people out there. And ultimately, that's the whole thing, right? Is like grow your gift because you are such a gift and you need to grow into your gift and you need to continue growing yourself so that your gift can continue to grow. And so that was the precipice, right? That was another piece of the red thread. When I sat there and watched that, I was like, oh yeah, no, this is Sarah, you got to step in and full on step in. And so that was 2021 going into 2022. And now 2 years later, through a lot of work, a lot of stepping in, a lot of leaning in, and many times where I was going to give up, to be honest with you. I mean, there was one time in particular, a year ago, December, where I was just like, you know what? So we're coming up on a year. And I remember sitting there looking at everything. And I was really at a place of maybe I should just close it all and not do this because creating the rebrand, creating the speaking reel, putting yourself out there over and over and over again, I felt like I was just hitting a wall. And it's like, what is this all for? And I'm very happy. And I was like, maybe I should just go live in a tent on a mountain and buy a cabin, do whatever, call it a day. And I had one person in particular who I messaged, Allison Levine. And I had this conversation with her and she was like, She said something to me. She said, in 1 year, Sara, we will laugh about this moment. And I'm literally getting so, I remember that. And it was such a gift for me because during this whole journey, and I told her this just recently, if you don't know Allison, go read her book On the Edge. It's incredible. She is just such a freaking powerhouse. When I was sitting on my bed during all of this in the beginning of my trauma recovery, I had somebody message me and they said, we just went to this woman's book signing, Allison Levine. And I want you to read her book because this is a future version of you. I mean, nobody can be Allison. let's just state it. What she meant, though, was this version of you, of really leaning into the gift of who you are, of being the leader that's within you, of speaking up when others are saying something completely different, and of becoming this powerhouse that we all know that you are. And so she dropped the book off and it was signed by Allison. And I remember starting the book, and it was the first and only book that I could actually read cover to cover because I was in such trauma brain. I couldn't sit and read. I was in such trauma brain and I couldn't focus. And I remember reading that book and being like, wow, now this is good stuff. This resonates. And I remember thinking to myself, like, I'd love to email her someday and have a conversation, but man, this woman is like so far beyond anything, right? Like she's wow. She's wow. So Allison was the first, she was captain of the first all women's team to climb Mount Everest from the United States. And fast forward, I did email her. I emailed her when I was doing my TED Talk. And I just asked her, like, how do you get into speaking biz? And she emailed me back when she was on a plane. I'll never forget that email. And that was the start of my next red thread, right? And then fast forward 2020, I was walking down the street and ran into a dear friend. And I just said, hey, he asked me, he's like, what are you up to these days? Now that we're in 2020, we're in COVID, like we're in the lockdown in whatever. And I said, well, I would love to get into speaking someday. And he said, you should talk to my friend Allison Levine. Like she's amazing. And I was like, you know, Allison? He's like, yeah. And I said, oh my gosh, like I've been emailing her and that's wild. So we took a picture together, we sent it to her, and that started the next piece, right? And then I got into this relationship and watched somebody else delivering this, that he wasn't even walking in the integrity. And I thought, you know what, on the other side of this, like when you sit back and you look at the red thread that goes through all of it, when you start to see, and I say red because in my branding, there's a red thread. If you take a look at it, there's this red line that goes all the way through. And I didn't come up with that. Kendra came up with that. She was like, there's a red thread in your life. And there's so many. I mean, I'm just touching on the few that I have had. When you look back and you start seeing the reasons behind it, it gives that much more power to the present gift that you are creating for this world, whatever that is in your life, right? It even goes back as far as when you watch my video, the About video, my mom, I remember my mom has since passed, and I had this conversation with her when I was standing on the street and we were doing this video. And I told her, I said, you're the one that has helped me to take the steps forward. If it wasn't for her having those moments of like, Sara, you got to keep going. You got to keep going. You got to keep going. I don't know if I'd be here where I am. So when I speak, when I do the work, when I do everything in this world, it's on behalf of her as well, because she's also been a part of the greatest story of my life, right? And that which is living, it's overcoming, it's smashing the barriers, it's being resilient. She's a part of the story of all my problems in my life, of my problem solving that I now teach to others. Because on the other side of every single problem, there's this greatest opportunity. And that opportunity is what this world needs. So I want to give you a few things. My top 3 things, I was thinking about this morning. What got me to where I am? And I want you to grab your journals and to write this down. Create a vision. If whatever that vision is, if you were standing on stage, this is the very first thing. If you're standing on stage, somebody asked me this, and you could deliver any message at all to the world, what would it be? And I have had that question put in front of my face over and over and over in the last 12 years. That vision, regardless of how crazy it may seem, that is what you need to be walking towards. That is your forward movement right there. Become that person today, right? And that whole piece of the, how am I going to do this, is going to unfold for you. I promise you. So every morning when you get up, meditate on that person, become that person, sit in, just close your eyes and sit in. This is her. This is him. This is me. This is who I want to be, because this is who I am today. And so connect that, right? So that's the very first thing. And then the second thing is find someone to support you. In those moments when you feel like you are like not able to become that person, find the people to support you in the now. Like Allison was for me, like my mom was for me, right? Find people to support you that can say, hey, just keep going. This is how it's going to happen. And then the third thing is stand up for yourself. Other people's doubts do not need to become yours. Do not let them become yours. Stand up for that belief, for who you are. Stand in your values and why you do what you do every single day. And I promise you, like I promise you, that red thread is going to make sense. So go look at my new branding, sarahschultencrans.com. It is speaking. It is about diving into your resilience, your problem solving. If you know anyone or if your business is looking for somebody to stand up there and to help you, to help your teams become the best version of themselves, please know that your girl is right here. And I would be more than happy to help you to become, to really have the opportunities on the other side of your problems today. I have always said the greatest gift that you can give to this world is your voice, to share your story, to inspire and motivate. And that's what I'm hopefully doing with all of you in this podcast, in this community. And that's why I'm also stepping into the world of keynote speaking, because I want to help the individuals, teams, businesses, organizations, corporations really dive into this space of what's next. And I'm so excited to have you here along for this journey. If you want to hear me on a different platform, I am on Health, Harmony, and Heather with Heather Thompson this week. Yes, I am also on other podcasts. Super exciting to share there. And lastly, go into my website, sarahschultencrans.com, and I have a really special gift for all of you. We created downloadable screensavers for your phone and for your computer. Every single one of them have pictures from my own camera roll, which has 101,000 plus photos in it, by the way, along with the most impactful screensaver motivational quotes that I have had, that I've used in my life and that have come to me from the trail or from just like sitting on my paddleboard. So I want you to go, please download them, drop in, put them into your screens and share them with other people. And I hope they motivate you every single day to get up and live the best life as well. Glad to have you here. I love you. And like I said, keep rising, my friends, keep rising. Thank you for being here. I am so excited to be launching this into the world. Regarding retreats, yes, we do have one in the Grand Canyon in June. As of right now, we are going to launch that out there as well. Dive into my website, dive into my speaking reel, dive into the Who is Sara part of this. And I cannot wait to help you get on the other side today. Thank you so much for being here, for following along. And please push this out into the world, help others to really step into their best selves as well. Tag me on social media so I can reshare. And I am excited for what is next. for not only me, more so for all of you. Thank you for being here.